I was just waiting for the Vatican document to come out today, which was promised. But on the Vatican website, I was looking at the Mass missalette that they've published for the Feast of Pentecost. And I was scrolling down to see the liturgy of the day. Of course, they've used Eucharistic Prayer 3, which was the same prayer that was used during the funeral of Pope Benedict. It seems like the Roman canon has fallen out of favour in Rome, the traditional Roman canon. But it also seems like the traditional translation of the canon, of the Consecration, has fallen out of favour. People will remember, we have a very ancient liturgy. I point to the liturgy of the Divine Liturgy of Saint John Chrysostom. So, in here you can read what was celebrated at the very early part of the church, and the consecration of the wine reads as follows in English from that liturgy, and it says, "Drink ye all of this. This is the blood of the New Testament, which is shed for you and for many for the remission of sins." Now that's what the early church heard during their divine liturgy, during the sacrifice, the Mass. And so the translation in Greek, it was for you and for many, kai polon. Kai polon. That is the exact words that would have been heard at Mass. Not kai panta, for everybody, for all. Kai polon. Just to be clear, I'm not a Latin expert, but I know what for many and for all would mean in Greek, as I studied it. Anyway, and this has the Latin and the Greek, the English and the Greek translations of the early liturgy. And then we go and we look at our Roman liturgy. So here is a missal that I found in a bin in France. It's a beautiful missal, 1955. Found it in the bin, practically brand new. And in here it says that here is the consecration. Hic est enim calix sanguinis mei, novi et aeterni testamenti, mysterium fide, quod pro vobis et pro multis effundetur in remissionem peccatorum. Now, after Vatican II, in the new order of the Mass, the Mysterium Fide was moved to the end. And then we added, do this in memory of me. So, hoc facite in commemorationem mei. Something like that. So, the consecration, the words, hic est enim calix sanguinis mei, novi et aeterni testamenti, qui pro vobis et pro multis effundetur in remissionem peccatorum. Those exact words in Latin are present in the Novus Ordo of the Mass in Latin. They're present there, okay? If we look at the translation in English, you will see that that pro multis in Latin is translated for many. That's the official English translation. And if we look at what is going on in the Vatican today, they have translated pro multis, per multi. They haven't translated it per multi. And Latin and Italian are very, very similar. So it's not like, sometimes there's this saying translation. Sometimes in Italian, there's this phrase, traduttore, traditore. Translator, traitor, because sometimes it's very hard to translate exactly something from one language to another. Something that is one word in one language, they have a word, there's lots of words in Irish to describe rain, different types of rain. And so you have a word in Irish to describe drizzle or this different types of rain. And in English, you don't have the exact same word, so you have to describe it. It's raining cats and dogs to reeling. It's pelting down from the skies. Different languages have different words, and it's often not time to get an exact translation. But pro multis in Latin translates to Italian per multi. Per multi. Italian descends directly from Latin. And so even the word multis is translated. But the Italians have said, do you know what? We're not going to bother with what the original Latin translation said. We're going to say, per tutti, tutti, per tutti. That's what they've translated it. Per omnibus. Why don't they just go back and change the Latin translation? Instead of pro multis, why doesn't the Vatican just say the Latin But you know what? They've done a step better. We're just not going to say the Latin. Are we? You know, and I'm just looking at the different years, you know, the earlier on in Pope Francis' pontificate, they were using the Latin in the Vatican during the consecration, and now they've decided to use the Italian. You know, many people would think I'm nitpicking at the church. I'm nitpicking and I'm very rigid and, you know, traditional, and you want everybody to go back to the traditional Latin Mass. I think it's just a valid observation. You know, our Greek text says kai polon. Kai polon. That's what the Greek text of the Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. The Latin text that we had for since the beginning of the Rite, the Latin text says pro multis. What is so wrong with translating what was in the Latin to the Italian? And yet the Vatican has to use a different translation. And then we're wondering why in initially, you know, the church is dying. It has never been, we've never seen such a fall away from the faith. More people in Italy go to tarot card fortune tellers than go to spiritual directors. That is a fact. More people will practice yoga in Italy than will actually go to the holy sacrifice of the Mass. People say, oh no, it can't be true. Yes, it is true. In France, 10 million people practice yoga. You don't have 10 million Mass-going Catholics every Sunday in France. You know, I just don't see why is the church so focused on making sure that we have a different consecration to what was held for 2,000 years. Just an observation here, guys, coming out as, you know, we draw towards Pentecost. In the English translation, it does reflect accurately the Latin. But many priests don't bother with what is approved by, you know, bishops as the English translation. You know, I just reflect on one thing. The first time I went to Medjugorje, I know, a very controversial place in the Catholic world. The first time I went to Medjugorje, I arrived late and it was a Wednesday. This was in 2022. Arrived late, and so it was after 6 o'clock. I arrived into the pension and I left my stuff and I said I'll walk around St. James's Church. So I was walking around and they were having the sacrifice of the Mass in the big open air area at the back of the church. And the first words I heard ring out across all of Medjugorje was, Hoc est enim corpus meum. That was the words. And the priest, the Mass was in Croatian, but when it came to the consecration, they said the consecration in Latin. And I thought, what a unifying prayer for the church. Because you have so many people from different countries, different languages, all listening to the consecration in Latin. Are we so lost as a Roman Rite we cannot say 5 sentences in Latin and teach the Roman Catholic Church 5 or 6 sentences in Latin? Hoc est enim corpus meum. Are we so lost as a Roman Latin Rite Church we are unable to teach a few simple words in Latin and use them in our liturgy? For example, the consecration in our Roman Rite, the Roman Latin Rite. We are Roman Catholics. We have, you know, of the Latin tradition. Are we so lost that we are unable to actually say, Hic est enim calix sanguinis mei, novi et aeterni testamenti, quad pro vobis et pro multis effundetur in remissionem peccatorum. Guys, I asked the church, show coherence, so logical. You have to be coherent here. The Pope has said that those that cling to tradition are conservatives. He said this to the Americans. He said those that cling to conservative ideas, they have suicidal. It's a suicidal mindset. This is coming out on Sunday on 60 Minutes. This is what the Pope has come out. What is going on? What is going on in the church? Anyway, it's just an observation now, the Pentecost. I hope someday that the church will say, look, do you know what? These words of consecration, they served us well for 2,000 years and created many saints. Why is there this demonic push to change what Christ said? Why is there this push? We're not happy with, no, he didn't. That's not what he read. No, the church was wrong for 2,000 years. It wasn't pro multis. It was per tutti. That's what really we're going with this new translation. Per tutti. Did Christ say that? No, but in the Aramaic, if you go back to the Aramaic, it could be understood in this way, and Christ said it in Aramaic. Interesting times. I'd like to see this debate. But anyway, I give it in a good spirit. I just asked the question. We're supposed to unite the church. Why can't we have the consecration said in Latin in the Roman Catholic Church? I'm not saying that the whole Mass should be in the vernacular, but surely our bishops and our priests can teach us 5 or 6 sentences in Latin. Surely. I'm sure Catholics are well capable of learning to understand what hoc est enim corpus meum means. I'm sure of it. 5 words. Hoc est enim corpus meum. I'm sure priests and bishops can educate Catholics to understand when they say those words, what do they mean? And when they say hic est enim calix sanguinis mea, I'm sure we can do a small catechesis and an education on what the consecration in Latin actually means. And then we unify the church around one consecration. There is no division in the Mass then. I asked the question, what is going on? God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.